If you ever find yourself alone in the woods and hear someone repeating your footsteps, don't stop, because if you stop and the steps continue, it's no longer your trial. This happened in March 2019 in Montana, near Kalispell. Our youth program was called Northern Ridge Initiative. It was similar to the Scouts. Discipline, survival, character building. The hardest stage was called White Silence. The rules were simple. 24 hours of complete isolation in the mountain forest. At the end of winter, no phone, no watch, no contact with other participants, just a compass, a canteen of water, and a flare. Strictly for real emergencies. They always told us, the biggest enemy in the forest isn't the cold, it's your imagination. I was 17, confident, maybe too confident. I thought I knew what to expect. I was wrong. They dropped me off on a logging road before sunrise. The snow was melting, but the ground was still frozen solid. The trees stood bare and dark against a gray sky. The air was so still. My own breathing sounded too loud, according to the rules. I had to walk at least 3 miles into the forest, build a shelter, and remain there until dawn the next day. The first few hours were calm. I set up a simple tarp lean-to between 2 trees and gathered dry branches just to keep my hands busy. The sun rose, but it gave no warmth. The problem started during the day, because the forest didn't sound right. No birds, no wind, not even the usual snapping of branches. The silence felt heavy, like it had weight. I told myself it was normal. Late winter. Wildlife still inactive. Nothing unusual. Then I heard it for the first time. A step. I froze. A few seconds later, another one, behind me. I turned quickly. Nothing there. Maybe the snow shifted. Maybe a branch fell. I took 1 step forward. A moment later, another step behind me. Not in sync. Delayed. Like something was copying me. I walked a few more yards. Step, pause, step. My heart began to pound. My mind searched for explanations. Echo? Settling ground? A small animal? I stopped suddenly, and in that exact second I heard one more step. Separate, clear, behind me. I didn't run. I didn't scream. The instructors had warned us. Panic is your enemy. I slowly turned around, empty. But now I knew it wasn't coincidence. By evening, it had happened at least 10 times. Every time I moved, something seemed to wait a second and follow. I decided to stay close to my shelter. No unnecessary movement. The sun dropped fast. Darkness in the mountains doesn't fade in. It falls. And that's when it got worse. Because in the dark, you can't tell where the sound comes from. Now it wasn't just footsteps. Sometimes a faint crunch. Sometimes what sounded like a quiet exhale, like someone standing behind the trees, just watching. I didn't light a fire. It was allowed, but I was afraid the light would make me visible. The hours stretched endlessly. Around midnight, I heard something different, my own whistle. Earlier that day, while building my shelter, I had been absent-mindedly whistling an old country tune I once heard on the radio. Now, somewhere between the trees, someone was repeating it, slowly, wrong notes, pauses in the wrong places. That was the moment I felt real fear, because that couldn't be an animal. I grabbed the flare. The red cylinder in my hands felt like the only real thing. In that unreal forest, I hesitated. Launching it meant failing the trial. Not launching it meant staying. The whistle came again. Closer. I jumped up, ran out from the shelter, and fired the flare into the sky. Red light tore through the darkness, and for a second I saw a silhouette between the trees. Not clear, not defined, but too tall to be one of the teenagers in our group. The light faded. Everything went black again. 20 minutes later, the instructors arrived. They found nothing. No tracks around my camp except mine. I told them about the footsteps, about the whistle. One of them looked at the other in silence. Then he said something I still remember. White silence doesn't test whether you can survive in the forest. It tests whether you can handle it when the forest starts answering back. A week later, the program was shut down, officially due to changes in safety policy. Unofficially, I wasn't the first to fire a flare because of footsteps. I never went back there, but sometimes when I walk alone down a dark street, I stop on purpose just to make sure the silence behind me stops too. In the official report, filed by the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, there is only one sentence: probable cause of disappearance, disorientation in mountainous terrain. But at the bottom of the page, written in pencil and different handwriting, someone added they were heading in the right direction. Late February 2018, Colorado, that strange time of year when winter is too weak to stay, but spring is too afraid to arrive. Snow lies in dirty patches. The air smells like melting water and pine needles. The sky hangs low over the mountains, heavy and gray. Troop 312 from Boulder set out on their final trial. 6 boys. One scout leader, Eric Hamilton. 36 hours of autonomy. No phones, no GPS. Just a map, a compass, and an old fire lookout tower on Redstone Ridge as their extraction point. They had done harder hikes before. Colder nights. Longer routes. This was supposed to be routine. The first few miles were easy. They joked, filmed short clips for the troop archive, argued about who would climb the tower first, and then the forest went quiet. Not just quiet. Wrong. No birds. No distant highway hum. Not even wind. Sam was the first to notice the compass behaving strangely. The needle didn't spin wildly. It hesitated, drifted a few degrees, then slowly corrected itself. Magnetic interference? Alex joked. Eric didn't answer. An hour later, they stepped into a clearing that wasn't marked on the map. In the center lay a split cedar tree, cracked clean down the middle, as if struck by lightning, but there were no burn marks. No storm damage. Carved into the trunk was a symbol, a triangle inside a circle. The wood was pale and fresh. That's not ours, Jacob said immediately. No one had to agree. Eric checked their coordinates. According to the map, they should have been half a mile east. They kept moving. 40 minutes later, they saw the symbol again. Same carving, same height. That was when the thought surfaced. Quietly, without anyone saying it out loud. Either someone was walking ahead of them, or something already knew where they were going. Night fell fast. Mountain darkness isn't like city darkness. There's no background glow. A flashlight creates a narrow tunnel of visibility, and everything beyond it feels thick, almost solid. Around 2 a.m, Nathan woke up. It wasn't a sound that woke him. It was a feeling, like someone standing close, watching. He slowly leaned out of the shelter. Between the trees, something stood, tall, still, too straight. When he blinked, it was gone. He told himself it was exhaustion. In the morning, they found the tracks, a perfect circle around their camp, deep, narrow, evenly spaced, as if someone had walked around them step by step throughout the night. "That's not a coyote," Michael said quietly. Eric didn't respond right away. Then he told them to pack up. The day began to unravel. The sun was higher, but the light remained dim. The map no longer matched the terrain. A stream marked as flowing south ran west instead. A gentle slope turned steep and slick. "We're moving the right way," Eric repeated, but it sounded like he was convincing himself. Late that afternoon, the emergency radio clipped to Eric's pack crackled to life. He hadn't touched it. Static. Then fragments of words. "Don't climb. Stay together. You're already late." The voice sounded like his, distorted. He turned it off. No one suggested turning it back on. By the time they reached the ridge, fog was sliding down through the trees unnaturally fast, as if released from somewhere above. And then they saw the fire lookout tower, right where it was supposed to be, but older than it should have looked. The ladder partially broken, the windows shattered. Eric climbed first. The cabin was empty. On the floor lay a notebook, damp, yellowed. He opened it. February 27th, 2018. That same day, below the date was a list of names: Alex, Jacob, Sam, Nathan, Michael, Eric Hamilton. The handwriting was his. Under the names, a single sentence: "Do not let them separate." From below, someone called his name. "Eric." He stepped to the window. The boys were standing in the clearing, frozen, staring into the forest between the trees, evenly spaced. Stood 6 figures, exact copies of them. No expression, no movement. Like reflections delayed by a few seconds. And the worst part, those copies weren't looking at the boys. They were looking at Eric. 2 days later, a search team located the abandoned camp of Troop 312. Backpacks packed, food sealed, no signs of struggle. Just tracks in the snow, many tracks, and not a single one leading out of the clearing. In the Wyoming Park Service report, dated March 14th, 2020, there is a strange detail. Weather conditions were stable. Night temperature, 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Daytime, just above freezing. No storm warnings. And yet, the search team added a note. The terrain behaved inconsistently. No one ever explained what that meant. In late February, a scout group from Casper, Wyoming, arrived at Grand Teton National Park to complete their final winter qualification, known as the White Line Passage. 5 17-year-olds, and their leader, Mark Ellison, 41, calm, experienced, a man who had led dozens of backcountry routes without incident. The assignment was simple: a 2-day trek across forest terrain to an unused ranger shelter. No shortcuts, no external assistance, just navigation, endurance, and decision-making at the end of winter. Nothing experimental, nothing unusual. The first few hours felt normal. Snow crunched under their boots. Pines stood dark and heavy. The air was thick and quiet. Then they noticed something subtle. The snow wasn't melting. Temperatures had risen above freezing. Water dripped from branches. Open patches of ground were turning damp. But the narrow corridor of forest they were hiking through remained frozen solid, as if the cold existed only there. "It's just shade," one of the boys said. Mark nodded, but he felt it too. The difference was too sharp. They reached the ranger shelter near dusk. The structure stood where it should, roof intact, door closed. But something was wrong. There were no animal tracks nearby. None. In deep snow around the building, nothing. They stepped inside. The air was cold, but not abandoned cold, and there was no dust, as if the place had been aired out recently. Mark scanned the room. On the table sat a metal thermos mug. He touched it. It was warm. He pulled his hand back immediately. "Someone was here," he said quietly. "How long ago?" Dylan asked. Mark didn't answer. They searched the entire shelter. No food supplies, no personal belongings, no logbook entries. Just the warmth in the mug, fading slowly. That night, something shifted. Around 1 in the morning, one of the boys stood near the window. He noticed the snow outside, moving, not falling, moving, as if being slowly pushed from one side of the building to the other. There was no wind, no visible figure, just the surface changing on its own. He woke Mark. They stood in silence, watching. After a few minutes, the movement stopped. Morning brought something worse. Their tracks leading to the shelter were gone. The snow was smooth, perfect, as if they had appeared inside the building instead of walking to it. It was wind, someone said, but wind does not erase prints so evenly. Mark made the decision to leave immediately, and that was when the forest changed. The clearing they had walked through the previous day no longer felt open. Trees stood closer together. Snow was deeper. The cold returned sharply. "We're following the same rack," insisted. But an hour later, they stepped back into the clearing. The shelter stood before them again, the same one. The thermos on the table was now cold, and beside it lay a compass. It did not point north. The needle turned and fixed itself toward the building. No matter how they rotated it, Mark pulled out the sealed GPS unit. The device powered on normally. Coordinates appeared, accurate. But they weren't in Grand Teton National Park. The screen placed them nearly 40 miles north. "That's a glitch," Mark said quickly. But his voice carried strain. Dylan looked at him. "What if it's not?" Silence thickened. Behind them, the shelter door creaked softly. No one was touching it. Mark understood then. The trial was no longer about navigation. It was about choice. Stay in the shelter, where there was structure, walls, perceived safety, or walk into the densest part of the forest with no clear reference points. He looked at the boys. "We move," he said. They didn't follow the old trail. They cut straight through the tightest section of trees. For 20 minutes, the forest felt heavier with every step. Then, the temperature shifted abruptly. Snow softened beneath their boots. Water began dripping again. Ahead, a familiar clearing appeared. The real one. 6 hours later, they reached the parking lot. Everything looked ordinary, vehicles untouched. No emergency alerts. No reports of anomalies. In the official file, Mark wrote only one sentence. Route completed, no incidents. But in his private journal, he added, "The forest didn't try to scare us. It tried to keep us."